Hey everybody, and welcome back to another fun and exciting Algebra 1 video. In today's lesson, we're going to be jumping into 2.6 in your book. That is on page number 57. Page 57, we're going to be talking about word problems with multiple unknowns. So what does that mean? Sometimes you get a word problem, and it seems like you have two things that you don't know. So far, we've only dealt with one thing that we don't know. But now we're going to get questions that are asking us for like two numbers or maybe a number of boys and a number of girls. And we don't know either one of them. And so we have to figure that out. Here's probably the biggest thing that I can say right off the bat. You would never use two different variables to solve these. You don't use an x and a y. That's a mistake because you can't, if you have an x and a y, there's no way to solve it. So what we have to do is we have to actually take one of the variables and then kind of relate it to the other unknown. So maybe it's like there's 32 more boys than girls. So then you could take like x equals the girls and then x plus 32 would equal the boys, something like that, where you only have one variable and you're using it twice and you're using it with both of the unknowns. That's the way you need to solve these. So kind of get out of your mind, oh, I could just do an X and a Y, or I could do an A and a B. That's not going to work for these. So let's go ahead and jump over to the book. Look at page number 57 with me. All right, so the first thing that you should see here is kind of this chart that's on this book, right on this page right here. And you're going to see all kinds of different sentences or phrases. And then we're going to be able to look at what are the unknowns. And then we're going to say, how would we represent those in algebra? Okay, so Johnny is 7 years younger than Charles. So we have Johnny and Charles. They're both unknowns. We don't know either one of them. Okay, so we're going to say that Johnny is going to be a variable and Charlie is going to be a variable. So what we want to do when we see this is we want to say, okay, which one do I not know anything about? That's going to be our variable. That's going to be our x, in this case, our c. The other one that we know a little bit about, that is going to be our c plus something or our c minus something or our c times something, whatever it is. So in this case, we know Johnny is 7 years younger than Charlie. So we know something about Johnny. We know Johnny is 7 years younger than Charlie. We don't know anything about Charlie. We have no idea what Charlie is. So Charlie becomes our X, in this case, our C. And then Johnny becomes our C minus 7 because he's 7 years younger. Hopefully that makes sense. The next one, three consecutive integers. You got to go back here like, what's an integer? Well, remember, we went through, I think this was in our very first lesson, and we talked about what an integer is. An integer is a counting number, 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? So what consecutive, that means in a row, what numbers, what counting numbers in a row um, are we looking for? So when we need this, we would say the first number is the one that we don't know anything about. And you might say, why? I don't know anything about any of the numbers. Well, you really do. The first number, we don't know anything, but the second number, we know that that is 1 plus that. Why? Because it's consecutive. That means it's in a row. So if it's 3, the next number, the next counting number would be 3 plus 1, which is 4. The next counting number would be 3 plus 2. 3 plus 2 is 5, so 3, 4, 5. The next number in that sequence would obviously be 3 plus 3, 3 plus 4, and so on. So it's the first number that we don't know anything about. The other numbers we do have a little bit of information about. The next one says three consecutive odd or even integers. Again, the same thing. The first one is the one that we don't know anything about. That's our n, that's our number, our x, whatever you want to call it. And then the next one would be our n plus 2. And you might say, why n plus 2? Because it skips a number, because it's odd or even. So it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, or it's 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so if your first number is 2, then it's not 2 plus 1, that's 3. 3 is not even. So it would be 2 plus 2, which gives you 4. So that's how the odd and even work. Once you get your first number, then the other numbers are based on adding 2. All right, the next one. For each of the next 2 months after May, the number of visitors to the national park tripled. So, okay, which one don't we know anything about? For the next 2 months after May, the number tripled. Oh, so we know things about the months after May. They tripled, which means times 3. But we don't know anything about May. May might be 10, it might be a million, it might be, we don't know how many visitors showed up at this national park. So May would be the X. In this case, they used V for visitors. And so we have V visitors were in May. Well, in June, it was V visitors times 3 because there was 3 times more. And in July, it was 3 times 3 more, okay, because it tripled the first month and then it tripled again the second month. And so now we have 9 times V. You could actually do 3 times 3 times V. That would work. But 3 times 3 is 9. So they just went ahead and multiplied that 3 times 3 out. Okay. All right. So I know you're like, this is clear as mud right now, Mr. Steve. I know. Okay. We're working on it. We're a work in progress right now. All right. So here we go. Now we want to solve these word problems, not just kind of represent them, but we actually want to solve the whole thing. So the first thing that we want to do right here on page number 58 is we want to read for understanding and represent the unknowns. That's what we just did with the other ones that we were kind of the examples we were just using. We were representing the unknowns. So we want to do that. We want to read it, and then we want to represent the unknowns. Notice it says identify all keywords and information. And then it says identify each unknown whose value must be found. Choose a variable to represent. Usually the unknown has at least information given about it. So again, we talked about that. The one you don't know anything about, that's going to be the X, or that's going to be the N, or whatever variable you pick. Represent the other unknowns in terms of the first unknown. So that's where we were getting the N plus 3, or the A plus 8, or C minus 4, whatever it was. Okay. And now step number 2, we want to write and solve the equation. So now we're going to write everything down, and then we're going to work on solving it. We want to solve these, do what we can do, just like all the ones that we've been doing in the past. And then we want to move the letters to one side, the numbers to the other side. And then we want to check the resulting answer. That's step number 3. So basically the same things that we've been doing, except for now we have to do that, obviously, that representation of the word problem. All right, so here we go. There were 224 people attending a volleyball championship. If there were 32 more women than men in attendance, find the number of women and the number of men that attended the championship. Okay. So the first step that we want to do is come back up here. We want to read for understanding. So do we understand that? It's pretty simple to understand. There's a volleyball tournament. We know how many people total were there. We also know that there were 32 more women than men, but we don't know how many women and how many men. So we need to figure that out. So now what we want to do is we want to represent the women and the men. You might say, well, let's put a W for women and an M for men. No, wrong, X, can't do that, okay? We can only have one variable. So what we want to do is we want to go in here and we want to figure out which variable do we not know anything about, okay? If there were 32 more women than men. So we know that there were 32 more women than men. So we don't know anything about the men. So men would be our variable. You can use X, you can use M for men, that's fine. Well, the plus 32, because we had 32 more women than men. Okay, so we want to plug this in. So the women plus the men equal the total. So if we have the women, number of women is m plus 32. The number of men is m. And how many total people were there at the tournament? 224. So then we would just solve this thing. So m times m, basically we're gonna combine these, and we're gonna get 2m plus 32. Move the 32 to the other side, and we're gonna get 2m equals 192. Divide both sides by 2, and we're gonna get that there were 96 men at the tournament. Now you might say, 96 men. Okay, so that's my answer, right? That's part of your answer. We also have to put how many women were at the tournament. So we would need to then go back into this and say, okay, so now my men is 96. So now how many is my women? I would just do 96 plus 32. And that's right here, over here in the bottom paragraph. And you see the m plus 32 is 96 plus 32, which means that there were 128 women at the tournament. Then you would go back in and check that and hopefully get the correct answer. Okay, let's go ahead and do some of these on my display here, and we'll try to see how this goes. Go ahead and turn the page over to page 58. That's where you'll find them in your book, but we'll go ahead and do these on the screen. So separate the number 64 into two addends so that the first is 3 times the second. What are the numbers? So what we want to do is we want to go in here and we want to say, okay, so what they're asking me for here is they are asking me for what we want to get some understanding. So that we want to get two numbers. So 64. So when anytime you see the word is, like separate the number 64, or what are the numbers, or something like that, that's going to be an equal sign. So we're going to get equals 64. This thing is going to equal 64. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to say, okay, what are these numbers that we're looking for? So the first number is going to be n for number, and then the second number is going to be n. Separate the number 64 into two addends so that the first is 3 times the second. So this is going to be 3 times, so it's going to be 3n. Okay. Now notice it says addend, so we're going to add these. So we're going to have n plus 3n equals 64. Now we just start solving it. What is 1n plus 3n? Well, that's 4n equals 64. We divide both sides by 4, and we get n equals 16. Okay, so that's our one number, right? So what is our other number? So one number is 16. The other number is the 3n. And so 3 times 16 equals 48. And so the 3n is going to equal 48. Okay, so the two numbers are 16 and 48. Okay, and you might be like, I have no idea what you're doing here. You're going to have to practice a few of these before you kind of get good at it. So this is going to be one of those things that you're just going to have to keep working at. This is not something that's really natural. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is so easy. This is something where you got to plug things in and just try things and figure them out. So keep working on these and you'll do okay. So the next one is the sum of 3 consecutive integers is 240. All right, so we notice some important information here. What's the important information? Is 240. So we want to write equals 240. And then we have 3 consecutive integers, but not just consecutive integers, they're consecutive even integers. So the first one is going to be n for our number. The next one is going to be n plus 2. Why not, if they're consecutive, why not n plus 1? Because they're consecutive even, because 2, 4, 6, 8, those are even, and you go up by 2 every time. So n plus 2, and then n plus 4 would be the next one. So this is kind of our unknowns right here. And now we just need to plug those over into our equation, because it's these things right here, when you add them up, they're going to give you 240. So we'd have n plus n plus 2 plus n plus 4. You can put these in parentheses, that's okay, but you don't need to when it's all addition. There's no multiplication. You're just going to take away the parentheses anyways, because you don't have to do anything inside the parentheses because you can't. There's no multiplication, there's nothing to do. So those go away. And now we're just going to add our n's. So we have 1, 2, 3 n's. So we're going to get 3n. And then we have a plus 2 and a plus 4. So add the 2 and the 4, and that's going to give us plus 6 equals 240. We're going to subtract our 6 from both sides just to kind of clear that out. And we're going to get 3n equals 234. And then we're going to divide both sides by 3. You can use your calculator for this next step, and you're going to get n equals 78. Okay, so that's the first number. Then you would say, okay, n plus 2 means 78 plus 2. And so then you get 80. And then you get n plus 4. And so you would get 82. Now, one way that you can check these, and I'll move that up so you can see it. One way that you could check these is just add these up and say, okay, does this actually add up to our number 240? If that does, you probably got the answer right. But the best way to check these would be to just kind of go back and put 78 into these places. So 78, then 78 plus 2, obviously that's going to be 80. 78 plus 4, that's obviously going to be 82. So you could just plug in there and you're going to get the same thing. Either way, you just do the math and you find out that yes, indeed, these do equal, when you add these up, these do equal 240. We did it correctly. Okay? All right, we will do one more and then we'll be done with this lesson. So a carpenter wants to cut a piece of board into 2 pieces such that the longer piece will be 48 inches longer than the shorter piece. How should each piece be cut up? Okay, how long should they be? All right, so let's do a couple things. The first thing that I notice, I like to just put this, is 120 inches. So the carpenter cut 100, so the whole piece equals 120. Okay, and we're gonna do 2 pieces. So you could do X on this one if you want. You could do, whatever number you want to use. So the book uses S. So we'll use S. So the first one is S. And then the second one is what? It says that it's 40 inches longer. So it's going to be S plus 40. So S plus 40. So there's our 2 variables right there. We have S and S plus 40. So you'd have S plus S plus 40. It's that easy. And now we just add those together. So we get 2S plus 40 equals 120. We subtract 40 from both sides. And we get that to cancel. We get 2S equals 80. And then we need to go ahead and just divide that out. So divided by 2, divided by 2. I don't like using S, by the way, for a variable, because that ends up looking like a 5. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of S. The book used it. I don't love it. I would have used X on this one. So we're going to cancel this out. We're going to get S equals 40. So the first answer is 40, and then that means that this answer is S plus 40, and so then you would also get 80 on this one. The way that you would solve or kind of check this is to add those up. 40 plus 80 does indeed equal 120. Okay, and so that is what we started with, and so that is the solution there. So if you think, well, that wasn't very easy, well, it's algebra, so welcome to algebra class. It's not always easy. Hopefully it is stretching your mind, it's stretching your ability to think. That's what algebra is supposed to be doing. If it hurts a little bit, if it gives you a little bit of a headache, then that again is what algebra is supposed to be doing to you. If it was easy, then you wouldn't be gaining knowledge, then you wouldn't be expanding your ability to think. So yes, algebra is difficult, but algebra, again, is making you think harder, think differently than you've ever thought before. Hopefully you learned something there. If you missed anything, make sure you slide that thing back, watch it again. We'll see you later. That's all I've got for you, so have a good one. See you later. Bye-bye.